So correction of errors and suspense account. The last time we wanted to look at the mistakes that happen in accounting. And even as students, you have been making mistakes when you are preparing or recording business transactions. So we say that accounting errors are non-fraudulent mistakes. Non-fraudulent in the sense that if the mistake is one that was intended to defraud the company, then that cannot be classified as an accounting error. So the error should be non-fraudulent. It should be an innocent mistake, if I want to put it, committed by the bookkeeper in recording business transaction. So we said that there are two types of errors, two types. The first one is errors that will not affect the agreement of the trial balance. So the first type of errors, when you commit them or when the bookkeeper commits them, the trial balance will still balance or it will agree, meaning that this type of error will not be shown by the trial balance. And I think I gave examples where this is possible in the last time. And then the second type is the errors that would affect the agreement of the trial balance. So those errors, when they occur, your trial balance would not balance or agree. There will be a difference in the trial balance. And I'm sure majority of us have encountered that when we're looking at preparing trial balance. You finish and then you see that there's a difference in your trial balance. Now, I did indicate to you that this difference is put in a temporal account called suspense account. So a suspense account is an account that keeps the difference in the trial balance. So what we sought to do was to take the first type of errors, which is the errors that do not affect the agreement of the trial balance, explain them, look at examples, and then how to correct them. Okay, so I think we listed them here so you can see on my screen. We had 7 of them. These 7 errors would not show in the trial balance. So the first one is error of omission, second error of commission, third error of principal. Next is error of original entry. We have error of complete reversal of entries, error of duplication or duplication errors, and then compensating errors. So these are the 7 errors that we looked at. I think we're able to look at the first 3, if I'm correct, but I'll go over all again so that my new members can follow. Okay, so the first error we took was the error of omission. Omission. As the name suggests, omission, it means the transaction was not recorded or entered in the books. The transaction was not recorded or entered in the books. That's error of omission. In some books, you see error of complete omission. So this is a type of error that occurs when a transaction is not recorded or entered in the books of account. So how would you know this is an error of omission or an error is an error of omission? You'd check for these words: was not recorded in the books or was overlooked. So let me look at some of the terms that you can come across. Overlooked or omitted from the books or was not recorded in the books. So for example, you have one here: credit sale of 1,000 Ghana cedi to Kofi was not recorded in the books. Now, what it basically means is that the bookkeeper didn't do the debit and credit for that transaction. Okay. If the bookkeeper had debited an account but didn't credit, then that will not be an error of omission. That'll be a different type of error, which we'll look at later. So this error occurs when the transaction was not recorded at all. So there was no debit, there was no credit. Now, how do you correct this error? To correct this error, you just pass the entries. You do the debit and credit to correct it. And then mainly, we use the general journal. The general journal. We use the general journal to correct these errors. So the journal is what we use to correct these errors. And when I say correct these errors, it doesn't mean that we are going to erase it or cancel it with pens and whatever. In fact, what we are going to do is to pass a double entry, do a debit and credit to correct this error. Okay. So let me quickly, I think you have seen the general journal before, but for the benefit of doubt, let me show you a sample here. So it has the title journal, and we have 4 columns. The last 2 columns are the debit columns and credit columns. And the first column is the date or the number, in case you are looking at maybe 5 errors, then number 1, number 2, number 3 in that order. And then this one takes the details or particulars, which are the accounts that you are going to debit or credit to correct the error. And most importantly, you always have to give a brief narration or a summary of the error in the journal. Okay. And then again, the account that you are going to debit should always come first, and the account you are going to credit follows, but you would have to indent it away from the account that is going to be debited. Okay. I think we'll get to be doing some of these things, so you get over it very soon. So that's for error of omission. Any question on that before we move to the next one? No question. Okay. Error of principle, number 2. We are saying that this error occurs when an entry is made at the right side of a wrong class of account. So what I want you to pay attention is the entry is made at the right side of a wrong class of account. So the error here is that the bookkeeper did the debit and the credit correct, just that he did it or she did it in the wrong class of account. And when we talk of class of account, we are talking about assets, expenses, liabilities, capital, etc. So for instance, if a bookkeeper records an expense in an asset account, then he has recorded the transaction in the wrong class. Because if you incur an expense, or if the business incurs an expense, it's supposed to be recorded in the expense account, not the asset account. So emphasis is on the fact that the entry was made in the wrong class of account. So if it is capital and you put it in a liability account, you have made or committed an error of principle. Okay, how do you correct it? You'd have to erase the entry in the wrong class and put it in the right class, again by doing your debit and credit. So I have an example here. Sale of motor vehicle was credited to sales account. Sales of motor vehicle was credited to sales account. So let me explain this one. When you sell motor vehicle is an asset. When you sell an asset, you don't record it in the sales account. Remember, we open the sales account when we sell goods, the items that the business is trading in. So when you see sale of goods, then you can open your sales account. But if you see sale of motor vehicle, which is an asset, you record it in a disposal account. A disposal account. Okay, so take note of that. When you sell asset, you open disposal account, not sales account. So in this case, the bookkeeper recorded in the wrong class of account. So we had to pass the entries to correct it. Okay. So as you see here, the sales was the wrong class. It should have been in disposal. So we moved it from the sales account and we put it in the disposal account. Okay, the next one is error of commission. Commission, yes. If your names are similar, then this error could occur. So you have Equia and Equia. We have one Equia with UKW or UK. Let me spell it here. We have this Equia, EKUA, and then we have this one. But they are all Equia. Whether you want to say it Aquia and Equia, they are all Quia. So because there's name similarities, the accountant makes the error of recording in the wrong person's account. So this error is committed when the right entry, again, the entry is correct, but in the wrong account because of name similarities. So you can have Kofi and then this Kofi, or some even have the KUOFI like this. So as you see an example here, cash of 500 received from Appia, APPIAH was credited to APPEAH account. So there's an error of commission when the entry is made in the wrong person's account due to name similarities. Questions? Please pause me to ask a question. Okay, since you are not ready to ask me a question, let me see if I can ask you some myself. Consider the error I'm typing here and tell me what type of error it is. So a sale of 2 machines worth $500 each was not recorded. Please, what type of error have I just typed on my Microsoft Word? If you know it, put up your hand and I'll call you. Okay, Mami Ya wants to say it. Mami Ya wants to. Oh, please, more hands now. You know this thing. You know it. Okay, Mami, what type of error is this?
Error of omission.
Error of omission. Okay, because this was not recorded in the books. Thank you very much. Let me see another one. Kofi returned. Okay, cash received from Kofi was not recorded in his account. Now, look at this error carefully. Cash received from Kofi was not recorded in Kofi's account. Okay, let me put some figure there. Cash of $300 received from Kofi was not recorded in Kofi's account. Is this an error of omission? If yes, why? If no, why? This one I may have to call people the way you have started your silence. Is this an error of omission when you look at it?
No, please.
Okay, Auntie Equia says no, please. Auntie Equia, why? Okay, Mame wants to explain. Oh, my gentleman, Kenton and Kenton. I have Christian here. I have Kennedy here. My gentlemen, what are you doing? The ladies are taking over the show. Please don't do that to me, gentlemen. Let's show them that we get more sugar. Brad Kenton. I think the ladies want to ladies power, the girl power. My guys, show me some sugar. Who is ready? Okay, Christian. Say Christian. My ladies, hold on for the guy.
So from the statement, you can see that the transaction was made in the book, but at the wrong account, in the wrong account.
Okay, so are you suggesting that is an error of commission?
Yeah.
Okay.
An error of commission.
That is a Christian's sugar version. Sir Kenton. Okay, somebody has typed something there. I think it's Kenton. It's an omission error because the transaction was not recorded in Kofi's account. Yes, okay. Thank you, Sir Kenton. Now the ladies, the guys have shown the sugar, but it seems I may have to add salt to the sugar. So the ladies, yes, mommy.
Okay, so it's not an omission error because it has been recorded, but not in Kofi's account.
Okay.
So I think it's between error of principle and error of commission.
Okay. The ladies have also given their salt, but I may have to add some sugar. So I think you were right at a point, all of you, but you also missed something. It's normal. I was expecting it because when you look at it, okay, it says cash of 300 received from Kofi was not recorded in Kofi's account. So let me start from this background. When a transaction occurs, you open two accounts, do a debit, and then do a credit to complete the double entry. So in this case, cash received from Kofi, we would have debited cash and credited Kofi. Now, the error says that this transaction was not recorded in Kofi's account. So it means that the bookkeeper didn't do the credit, meaning he did the debit, he debited the cash. If the cash was not debited, then the statement would have given us much details in that regard. So this is an error of what we call single entry, error of single entry. In other words, the bookkeeper did just one part of the double entry. He did the debit and didn't do the credit. Okay. Now, single entry is sometimes referred to as partial omission. Partial omission. So it's an omission error, but it's a partial one. Partial one because the omission was done in only one account. I brought in this so that you can differentiate between error of omission, which is where the transaction was not recorded at all. So this cannot be an error of omission because part of the transaction was recorded. But for the error of omission we are looking at here, none of the double entries should be done. So there should be no credit or debit, especially for Sir Kenton, for your information. So this is an error of single entry or partial omission. That's why I say in some books, you see error of omission as error of complete omission. Okay, so I just brought in that to assist you. Yeah, so thank you very much for your responses. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it so much. Now let's move on. Error of original entry. Or is there any question on what I just explained? If there is no question, okay. Error of original entry. I think I'm doing the reading too much. Let somebody read small. Bene, I miss your voice. You went to enjoy the holidays. I miss your voice. Please read something for me. Auntie Benedicta.
Error of original entry. This is where the original amount in the transaction used to make the entries in the account is wrong due to transposition of the figures. To correct this error, first, find the difference between the wrong amount and the correct amount and pass the necessary entries.
Okay. Thank you very much. But I can feel some, I think your voice may be too much enjoyment and singing. Okay, so we say that this error occurs when the amount used to pass the double entry is wrong due to transposition of figures. I think last time I was trying to explain what transposition of figures is. So for instance, if you have 1,560 and you end up entering 1,650, then you have transposed the position of the 6, or you have transposed the figures 6 and 5. You have changed their position. That's what transposition means. Okay, so we say that the accountant used the wrong amount because he transposed some figures. So when that happens, there will be a correct amount and a wrong amount. So how do you correct it? You would need the difference between these two figures, i.e. the correct figure and the right figure, before you can pass the double entry to correct the errors. So an example is cash sales of 250 was recorded as 520. So you see that the 2 and the 5 has been transposed. So that's an error of original entry. Here again, ensure that the accountant used the wrong figure to pass the double entry. If he used the correct figure in one account and a wrong figure in another account, that is not an error of original entry. Take note. So the wrong amount or the transposed figure should be used in doing the debit and credit before you can say it's an error of original entry. Okay. Next, error of compensation. Compensation. We say this error occurs when two equal and opposite errors cancel each other. This type of error is very rare though, but to correct it, pass the necessary entries to the two accounts which have been affected. So for example, both sales account and purchase account balances were overstated by 500. So we are saying that normally this error can occur when you make a mistake at the debit side and that same mistake is done at the or replicated at the credit side. So they cancel each other. These errors cancel each other. That's why we call them compensating errors. They compensate each other. Let me see if I can show you an example here. Yes, as I believe you can see this screen now. Let's assume this is my trial balance. I have my first item, which is sales, and then sales is supposed to be at the credit side, but I put it at the debit side. And then I have my next one, which is cash, which is supposed to, cash has a debit balance, but I put it at the credit side. So you see that my trial balance will agree, but there's an error. What error is that? This sales is supposed to be credit and this cash is supposed to be debit. But these errors are canceled themselves out because they compensate each other. Or let's say my sales figure was 700 and the cash was 700. And in recording, look at what happened. I put it at the credit, all right, but I wrote 800. And for the cash, I put it at the debit, all right, but I wrote 800. So you see, I have overstated the figure, but I did same in both sides. So they are canceling each other. So that's an error of compensation. Okay. I think I had slides to go through this error so that you can appreciate, but let's ignore that for now and move on with our discussion. Okay. Now, the next one is error of complete reversal of entries, complete reversal. When you see the name, it should suggest to you what this error is. You have completely reversed the entries. So instead of you debiting account, you credit it and you do a corresponding debit instead of a credit. So you see, this error occurs when the account that is supposed to be debited is credited and the other that is supposed to be credited is debited. I think I may have to show you or demonstrate this error on my, yes. So let's look at an example here. It says cash received from Kwesi 600 has been credited to cash account and debited to Kwesi's account. So you all know that when you receive cash from Kwesi, when you receive cash, you debit cash. But what did the bookkeeper do? The bookkeeper credited cash and debited Kwesi. So he has reversed the entries. Okay. Now to correct this error, normally you have to double the figure. You would have to double the figures. And then you pass the double entry to correct the error. So the example I have here is cash received from Kwesi has been credited to cash account and debited to, yeah. The amount involved is 680. You'd have to double it. So as you double, you have 1,360. Then you pass the entries to correct it. Okay. I think the last one is error of duplication. I believe we all understand duplication. You are duplicating the thing. You have made it twice. Auntie, if you have a question?
Mr. Amma, please, why are you supposed to double the figure?
You saying why are you supposed to do that? Are you asking why?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let me go back to this and show you here.
Is it a principle?
Okay, so let's look at it. In the one that I showed you, this is it. Cash received from Kwesi has been credited to who? Cash and debited to Kwesi. So let's look at it here. So this is what the bookkeeper did. He has credited cash and debited Kwesi. He has reversed the entries. So but when you look at the trial balance, it will balance because you would have cash credit of 500 and Kwesi debit of 500. If you want to correct it, look at it. This is the error. If you want to correct it, the 500 here is supposed to be at this side. So how do you make sure that this side has the 500? You'd have to double this 500 and debit the cash account. So you will debit the cash by 1,000. And Kwesi is supposed to have a credit of 500. So you would have to credit Kwesi's account, double of the figure. Okay, so that if we are doing the balancing, you see, this 500 would reduce this balance 500, right? And this will also reduce it 500. So you end up coming back to something like this: a debit 500 for cash and a credit 500 for cash. So that is why for error of complete reversal of entries, we double the figure to pass the entries to correct the errors. And if I hope I've convinced you small. Auntie Ifya, is it okay?
Yes, please.
Are you sure? Your yes, please is shaky. Should I go over it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So what we are saying here is that I think I have 2 minutes to do that. The error that I just saw, you see, the error was that a cash received from Kwesi has been credited to cash account and debited to Kwesi. Now let's look at the transaction here. The main transaction here is cash received from Kwesi. And when we did our double entry, when you receive cash, you debit cash and you credit the person who is giving the cash, which is Kwesi. So the correct thing was debit cash and credit Kwesi, as you see it here. You debit cash and you credit Kwesi. But this bookkeeper reversed the entries. So instead of debiting cash, he credited cash, okay, and instead of crediting Kwesi, he debited Kwesi. So how do we correct this wrong thing that the bookkeeper has done? So in doing so, you would say that, okay, we'll put first 500 here to cancel the credit, and then we put a second 500, right? By so doing, you have debited the cash by what? 1,000, which is double the figure. If we were correcting in Kwesi's account, we'll first put 500 here to erase the debit, and then we'll put the 500 there so that we credit Kofi 500. By so doing, you have credited Kwesi's account with 1,000. Okay, that's why we say you end up doubling the figure to pass the entries to correct the errors. I hope this one is a bit clearer now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, please.
So that is our final error, error of duplication. It means you made the entries twice. Why a debit not twice? Why a credit not so twice? So to correct it, you have to erase one by passing the entries. Okay, so I think our first session is ending. Please, let's all